So we're about to enter Piwniczna Zdrój, sitting on the Popra River on the Polish-Slovak border. Jewish community started to inhabit here in 1700s. It was early 1700s when they were granted rights. They came from Nowy Sacz, Grybów, so a certain migration more south into the Carpathian mountains. Altogether, we are talking about a couple of hundreds of people. There was a synagogue built, there was a mikveh built, both structures wooden, neither of them survived. Today, the only remnant of those couple of hundreds of Jews that lived here is the still surviving Jewish cemetery sitting in the Poprad River, sitting on the banks of the Poprad River. Altogether, there were a little bit over 200 Jews living in Piwniczna just before World War II. We are just below the market square in Piwniczna Zdrój, and literally couple of minutes down from the market square in the early 1800s, the local Jewish community decided to build a synagogue. It used to have a stone foundation and it was a wooden building with double folded roof. Here in somebody's garden behind me, you can actually see the remnants of the stone foundation that is the only remaining element of a synagogue. There was also a mikveh here on this hill. Both buildings were wooden. Both buildings were ordered to be taken apart by the German Nazis in 1941. And all of the synagogal pinkases and books that were there and documents were torched, were burned publicly. The older inhabitants of Piwniczna remember this massive fire and the pieces of paper and the pages of documents and sidurs flying in the air. Fairly recently, there was a monument established here on the side of where the synagogue was standing, which is trying to bring the memory of the Jews of Piwniczna back into the local community. So Piwniczna, with its couple of hundreds of Jews, never became an independent Jewish community. It was always administratively belonging to the constituency in Nowy Sacz. But it had a separate Jewish cemetery, and today those couple of dozens of stones remaining are making pretty much the only Judaica in the little spa city of Piwniczna. Piwniczna in its history, when the Jews started to settle in 1700s, was mostly a very comfortable location in the merchandising trails with Slovakia and Hungary, so facilitating trade with Southern Europe, because we are in a certain mountain pass or in the place where the Poprad River is making it for the Carpathian mountains. So for centuries it must have been a very frequently used merchandising trail. Then in 1800s rail system was built, which helped the city's economy, and that made the Jews to settle here on the permission of the local count and owner of the town only in the early 1700s. In 1800s, the community built a synagogue. So this is the hill on which the city is, the church, the market square somewhere behind this pine tree. Exactly here on the cliff was the synagogue of Piwniczna. The couple of hundreds of Jews of Piwniczna that lived here when the German Nazis started the war, and the war came here immediately in the first days of September 39, because the German army invaded Poland from Slovakia, from the south as well. The immediate anti-Jewish regulations enacted, Jewish businesses are confiscated, In 1941, Jews are no longer allowed to own and run the spa areas and spa houses. Ultimately, there's a slave labor camp built in Piwniczna, and in 1942, the Jews are being deported from here into the ghettos of either Nowy Sacz or Nowy Targ, from which in 1942 they will be deported into the death camp of most likely Belzec or the slave labor camp in Pustkov. So contemporarily in Piwniczna, there is just this little Jewish cemetery left on the edge of the town on the banks of the Poprad River.